Welcome to Mind, Muscle, and Metabolism, the Jade Teta podcast. Here you get the in-depth science and practical tools needed to change your body, optimize your health, and elevate your mindset. I'm Dr. Jade Teta, and here is what I want you to know. You are different. You are as unique on the inside chemically as you are on the outside physically. And those differences matter. They matter because there is only one rule to achieving optimal health, fitness, and body change. That rule: do what works for you. My goal is to help you understand exactly how. I'm so excited you're here. Your transformation starts right now. Welcome everybody to today's podcast. This is episode 5 of the Jade Teta podcast. Actually, is it episode 5? Let's see. I've been knocking these out for you guys, and I'm just going to double check. I'm pretty sure that it is episode 5. Let's check and see real quick. Yep, this is episode 5, and today we're going to be discussing something that I get asked a lot, and that is, how do I decipher food labels on processed food? Big question, big topic, right? So let's get into this topic. Waste no time. Look, the first thing that I want to point out, and actually I'll do something here for you that I thought would be sort of interesting. I'm going to read 2 foods for you, okay? And I want you to decide which one of these foods is a packaged food and which one is a natural food, okay? So food 1, helical amylose, milk solids, short and medium chain triglycerides, natural protein, monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, amylopectin, cellulose, glucosinolate, glucoraphan, pyridoxine, pantothenic acid, riboflavin, thiamine, other natural vitamins and minerals, natural flavors, sugar alcohols, and sea salt. Okay, so that's food number 1. Food number 2, natural protein, monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, isomalto-oligosaccharides, medium chain triglycerides, cellulase, lipase, protease, pyridoxine, pantothenic acid, riboflavin, thiamine, vitamins and minerals, natural flavors, lactobacillus acidophilus, cinnamon, and other natural herbs, and sweet leaf. So, can you guess which one of these foods is an all-natural food and which one is a packaged food, okay? Well, very difficult, right? And this comes right from one of the first rules that many people will tell you about reading labels. If you cannot pronounce what's on the label, don't eat the food, right? Well, you might be surprised to know that the first food that I read out to you is actually broccoli. Broccoli with a little pat of butter and some sea salt. And the second food I read out to you is a popular protein powder. So this should get you thinking right away. Why is it that we think that just because we can't pronounce something, it is not healthy? Obviously, broccoli and natural butter with a little sea salt is not a problem. Let me explain this to you. Monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharide, anytime you see saccharide, that is just another word for starch and or sugar. Butter has milk solids in it. Milk solids are another way of saying whey and casein, which are 2 proteins naturally found in milk and all dairy products. Medium and short chain triglycerides are natural fats found in things like butter. Fibers, helical amylose, cellulose, amylopectin, these are just different names for fibers, all very healthy compounds. Glucophorphane, glucosinolates, these are natural healthy sulforaphanes in broccoli that actually give broccoli some of its beneficial effects on estrogen detoxification, etc. And sugar alcohols. Yes, broccoli has trace amounts of things like xylitol and sorbitol in it. These are things that sound very chemically, don't they? And also, obviously, broccoli has its natural flavors in it, and salt has many minerals and things like that. Protein powder, right? Let's talk about that. Well, lipase, cellulase, protease, these are all just enzymes that are that occur naturally in foods like fruits and other things. For example, bromelain is a natural protease that you can find in pineapple. So these natural enzymes are added to a protein powder to help you digest the protein. The same reason why some traditional cultures will eat meat along with pineapple or tenderize meat in pineapple juice, because of the bromelain, the protease in that pineapple, helps to tenderize the meat. Again, the protein powder has the same kinds of starches and things that the broccoli had: monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. Isomaltooligosaccharide, just another name for starch. Maltodextrin, which gets a lot of people upset, is just another name for starch. Matter of fact, a potato essentially has maltodextrin in it. Of course, vitamins, those are the things like pyridoxine, pantothenic acid, thiamine, riboflavin. These are just vitamins, B5, B1, B2, etc. And lactobacillus acidophilus is a natural probiotic that is found in yogurt. And then sweet leaf, would be stevia, which is a natural sweetener from a plant called Stevia rebaudiana. And so the first thing I wanted to draw your attention to is this idea that we don't want to be overly simplistic. I mean, obviously, I'm going to teach you how to read food labels in this episode, but I also want to start you out to just understand, let's be a little bit more savvy in the way that we talk about labels and things like that. Yes, it is true. It's probably a good idea to be in a situation where when you look at a label, you can recognize everything on it, right? That maybe it says cream and sugar, which is ice cream, right? Heavy cream and sugar. Well, ice cream is not that good for you, is it? And so I would argue that this protein powder that has natural enzymes, lipase, cellulase, protease, monosaccharides, isomaltooligosaccharide, maltodextrin, et cetera, is definitely healthier than ice cream, which has cream and sugar. And so we need to move past these very simplistic, silly models of saying things like, well, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. Is that generally a good rule? Sure, it is generally, but I'm bringing it up because it does have a huge downside to it, doesn't it? And we want to be a little bit more savvy. So rule number one is to try to understand some of the things that may occur in natural foods that are also going to show up in pre-packaged foods. In this case, you saw a lot of things that are present in broccoli, if we speak about the chemical names of these natural foodstuffs, that also show up in a protein powder as well. And you'll see that the food industry is not out to try to get you. It's not some big conspiracy theory to put a bunch of chemicals in your food. It's simply that oftentimes these foods are being formulated in a way that uses the chemical names of a lot of things that naturally occur in nature. The other thing that you want to think about is some people might take this very hard line of, why are we eating packaged foods in the first place? And again, this is an interesting thing, right? It goes back to some of what I talked about in episode 1. We have to be convenient and have our eyes towards a convenience lifestyle. Nowadays, it is impossible to tell everybody that they must cook all their meals, shop at Whole Foods, only eat salmon and kale. If you tell a human to do that, what is the human going to do? They're going to throw up their hands usually and do the exact opposite of what you're telling them and go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac instead. And so we want to be in a position where we do not take hard lines with ourselves and with others. As a matter of fact, there is a lot of leeway. And actually, I'll draw your attention to a really interesting study. I like to bring this study up because it's one that I think shocks a lot of people. And this study was published in the June 2000 issue of the Nutrition Journal. And the title of the study was Nutrient Adequacy During Weight Loss Interventions, a randomized study in women comparing the dietary intake in a meal replacement group with a traditional food group. Now, in last episode, episode 4, I talked about reading research. And I talked about the idea that the best types of research are the types that involve humans. This one does. As a matter of fact, this study had 96 healthy but overweight and obese women between the ages of 25 and 50 years old. And they were randomized. So this is a randomized controlled trial into a traditional food group or a meal replacement group, which incorporated 1 to 2 meal replacement drinks or bars per day. So here's the interesting thing. Both groups essentially got the same diet that had an energy restricted goal of calories. In other words, they were put on a low-calorie diet that was the same, okay? And basically, one group was allowed to, as part of that low-calorie diet, include 1 to 2 meal replacements, either as drinks, shakes, or bars per day, whereas the traditional food group had to eat all, quote, whole foods. Now, this study was interesting in another reason as well, because it went on for 1 year. Now, some of the downsides of this study is that the dietary intake data was obtained using 3-day food records kept by the subjects. So these 3-day food records were brought in by the subjects at baseline, at the beginning of the study, at 6 months, and in 1 year. And so when we look at studies, we want to say, okay, well, there's some strengths and weaknesses to this. It is a randomized control trial, right? It does have a pretty significant group of people, and it is done over the long term, but it does involve some self-reporting, which is very difficult to tease out. But it's a pretty well-designed study, not perfect, but it can give us some information. So what do you think happened? Well, you got 2 people on a low-calorie diet. Well, we would expect if you take 2 groups and put them both on a low-calorie diet, both should lose weight, shouldn't they? And that's exactly what they saw happen in this study. Both groups lost weight around the same amount. No significant difference. The whole foods group lost about the same amount of weight as the group that was using these meal replacements, bars and shakes, these processed foods. But one thing that was really interesting is when they looked at the nutrient adequacy of the diets, when they compared the 2 diets of what people were actually eating, and then they looked at the comparison between the 2 groups, what they found is that the traditional food group, the whole food group, was actually showing a potential decrease in nutrient value. In other words, they were eating less nutrients than the food group, or than the group that was eating the meal replacements. And so over the course of the year, this was an interesting thing that happened. So don't we oftentimes think the opposite of that? Most people think very wrongly that if you have one group eating whole foods and one group eating processed foods, then of course the group with whole foods is going to lose more weight. That's not true. Both groups lost the same. We also tend to think that if we're eating mostly whole foods, we should have better nutrition and get more vitamins and minerals and things like that than the group incorporating the meal replacements and protein shakes and things like that. That was not the case either. Actually, it was the reverse of that. The group that had these meal replacements was doing better in terms of nutrient adequacy. Now, why might this be? This might be because humans, funnily enough, eat the same 10 foods pretty much day in and day out, which means we don't eat a very varied diet, which means that if we are lacking in those 10 foods, those 10 food groups tend to be things that aren't rich in potassium and higher in magnesium or whatever, we could potentially miss out on certain nutrients. Whereas some of these processed foods, oftentimes, one of the things we know about processed foods, especially bars and shakes, is they're almost always come along with a multivitamin, multi-mineral complex included in them. And so there are benefits to not only having these convenience foods. Instead of, having a Snickers bar, we have a protein meal replacement that might have more fiber and protein in it, and then having the Snickers bar. And so that becomes a better choice when the person is not going to eat organic kale and wild-caught salmon. And so we need to be realistic about this. So not only are these meal replacements sometimes way more convenient and meet people where they are, it's very difficult to haul around salmon and kale or chicken breast and broccoli in Tupperwares versus having a packet of protein powder or a bar, conveniently packaged protein bar. This is important because this is the real world, isn't it? And so this is the first thing I wanted to sort of address. Number one, we need to be a little bit more open-minded about what we call foods, because most of us are not chemists. And if you're not someone like me or an expert who can look at labels and be like, oh, pyridoxine just means vitamin B6, and oh, sorbitol is just a natural sugar alcohol that occurs also in fruits, then you can get confused. Likewise, if you make the wrong assumption that you should never have prepackaged foods, you could actually be doing yourself harm, either because you're avoiding convenient foods that would be better than less healthy convenient foods that are more widely available, or you're trying to be in a position where you're trying to make perfect the enemy of good enough. In other words, you're trying to eat salmon and kale, and more times than not end up eating Ben and Jerry's and popcorn instead, because you can't continue the constant preparation. And so this is very important. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention, and then also address the kinds of things that you may want to be looking at on a food label. So some of it we've already covered. Obviously, if it can be a very natural food and a food with not a lot of ingredients, that would be great. Should also be a convenience-based food. But there are also many foods that come in packages, like cereals and especially breads. Many people are still going to eat breads, and if you try to tell them not to eat bread or pastas and things like that, they are going to go in the other direction. Not only that, we are involved right presently. We're very lucky because food science is really growing by leaps and bounds. We are able to get textures and tastes and consistencies and flavors duplicated into our processed foods better than ever before. So some purists would be like, oh my God, this is all bad. But people like myself get very excited about this because we can take foods like a Snickers bar, make all kinds of adjustments, up the protein, take out the sugar, balance out the fat content, add vitamins and minerals, and up with a food that's 100 calories less, that is very satisfying, that satisfies our hunger and our cravings and balances energy, and adds good, healthy, even bioflavonoids and things like that, high bioflavonoid chocolate, or maybe blueberry complex, or all of these kinds of things. And so this stuff is very important. Now, how do you make sense of these? Because obviously you're shopping at Trader Joe's, and you're shopping at Whole Foods, and you're shopping at all these different places that are showing up with all these new packaged foods. How do we know which ones are good and which ones aren't? Well, one of the first things that I talk about back in episode 1 of this podcast is I talk about the idea of hunger and energy and cravings. HEC, HEC, hunger, energy, cravings. It's an acronym. When your HEC is in check, it means your hormones are imbalanced. When hunger and cravings are not an issue, it means you can eat better and more naturally create a calorie deficit, which is required for sustained and lasting fat loss. And so what we are now seeing is that when you look at a food, a packaged food, a protein bar, a protein shake, some bread, cereal, anything like this, you want that food to duplicate what happens in nature in foods that are very hunger suppressant. What foods in nature are hunger suppressing? Foods rich in protein and fiber and water. What foods are also low in calorie in nature? Foods that are lower in fat and lower in starch. And so we want packaged foods that are high in protein, higher in fiber, higher in water, and lower in fat and starch. Of course, we want some fat and starch and sugar and salt, enough to make that food enjoyable. No one wants to eat a protein bar that tastes like cardboard, but we want to do it in a way that satisfies our taste buds but doesn't trigger extra cravings. And many of these things will do this. So the first thing to look at on a label is you want to look at what is the amount of fiber and protein in that food compared to the amount of fat and starch in that food. So a couple things about a label. Usually when you look at a label, you're going to see at the top fat, and then you'll see calories from fat, and then you'll see total carbohydrates, and then underneath total carbohydrates, you'll usually see sugar. Now, here's a trick for you. Anything that is not fiber on a label is automatically sugar. The only two things that would fall under the rubric of total carbohydrate and not be sugar would be sugar alcohols and fiber. Everything else turns to sugar in your body. So when you see total carbohydrate, then underneath that sugar, what that is essentially meaning is simple sugars. Simple sugars. but it's still all sugar. And so really we don't care about that designation. From your body's point of view, the sugar gets into your system regardless. It's all going to turn to glucose unless it is fiber or sugar alcohol. So it's funny right here, actually, I'm just noticing in front of me I have Halo Top ice cream. Some of you may enjoy this. I actually enjoy this. I just ate a whole pint of it because this is another one of those foods that tastes great. It's one of these convenience-based foods. A whole pint only has 240 calories. Now imagine if I ate a Haagen-Dazs pint. That's 1,000 calories. But when I look at this label sitting here in front of me, here's what I see. Total fat, 2 grams. Total carbohydrate, 13 grams. But I want to distinguish how much of that carbohydrate is sugar, fiber, or sugar alcohol. So actually the dietary fiber in this is 3, and the sugar alcohol is 5. So I'm going to add those two together. 3 plus 5, that's 8. And now how much of that total carbohydrate is sugar? Well, we go 13 minus 8. What is 13 minus 8? It's 5, right? So that means there's 5 grams really of carbohydrate in this, 5 grams of sugar in this. And sometimes you'll see it works out that, oh, indeed, when you take the fiber plus the sugar alcohols and subtract it from 13, you get sugars 5. That's not always the case because some of those carbohydrates could be complex carbohydrates. And then the protein is 5 grams. And so here we have fiber 3, sugar alcohols 5, and protein 5 grams. And then we have the carbohydrates, total carbohydrates, after subtracting the fiber and the sugar alcohol are 5, and the total fat is 2. Here's a rough way to do this. Simply take the fiber, the sugar alcohols, and the protein and add those up, right? Add those up. Well, that is 13. And now subtract that 13 from the total carbohydrates. Well, total carbohydrates is 13. Minus 13, that's 0. Typically on a label, you want the total carbohydrates minus the fiber, minus any sugar alcohols, and minus the protein to be less than or equal to 10. The lower the number, the better, and negative numbers are best. So here we have a 0. What this essentially tells us is the following, is that if you eat this food, you're going to feel pretty satisfied in terms of hunger. Now, it doesn't tell us much about cravings, but I can tell you Halo Top is formulated in a way that makes it taste very much like ice cream. It's very palatable, so I feel like I just ate a pint of ice cream, yet I only got 240 calories. I ended up getting 20 grams of protein. I ended up getting 3, 6, 9, 12 grams of fiber and very little carbohydrate and fat on top of that, which did what? Did exactly what I said these types of foods should do, shouldn't it? It gave me hunger suppression, calorie reduction, and craving reduction all at the same time. So you can use that particular formula across the board. Now, let's repeat again. Just because I know I went fast, but if you're going to look at a label, first take the total carbohydrates, subtract out the fiber, subtract out any sugar alcohols, and subtract out the protein. So in this case, the total carbohydrate was 13. So the dietary fiber is 3. 13 minus 3 is 10. The sugar alcohols are 5. 10 minus 5 is 5. The protein is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Now, at the same time, you want that fat content to be relatively low too. 15 grams or lower. The lower, usually the better if the taste is the same in a packaged food. This is why Halo Top tastes so good, because it has enough sugar and fat in it, but not too much. And it's loaded with protein, fiber, and sugar alcohols. And by the way, sugar alcohols are things like xylitol, sorbitol, maltitol, and erythritol. And these things taste like sugar, but don't spike the blood pressure like sugar, don't raise blood sugar, don't spike insulin levels. Now, just a caveat here, they all sound very chemically, don't they? But xylitol, sorbitol, erythritol are all found, and maltitol are all found in trace amounts in fruits and vegetables. All they've done is take these out. For example, xylitol, which is a very popular one, is derived from corn and birch trees. Erythritol is derived from the skin of many fruits and things like that. Same with sorbitol and maltitol. I can tell you that sorbitol and maltitol are notorious for causing GI upset because sometimes these sugar alcohols will get in your system, and because they are not well absorbed, some of them better than others, some of them will pull water into the digestive system based on an osmotic gradient and cause some watery, bloating, gassing, things like that, watery diarrhea, loose stools, that kind of stuff. So maltitol and sorbitol are typically the ones that will cause those issues. However, erythritol tends to be very, very gentle on the GI system, and they've actually studied erythritol in dogs and humans for a while. Dogs cannot eat xylitol. It will make them very sick. It's poisonous to them. But dogs can eat erythritol in pretty high concentrations, and so can humans. And these things even have some beneficial effects on our GI system, our digestive tract. And so these sugar alcohols can be very, very useful for us. So in terms of digestive upset, maltitol is the worst. Erythritol is the best. Xylitol sort of stays in the middle. These things are also very healthy for our teeth. And by the way, our body makes xylitol in its everyday processes every day. So it's something our body knows how to handle. So these sugar alcohols can be very, very beneficial. So Halo Top has erythritol in it and stevia in it. Stevia is a natural sweet leaf that is used. It's derived from a plant. And this is how you do this. So you want to be taking care to look at these labels and see what's going on with them. Another example of this would be, I have a favorite bread here, and I'll just tell you this one by memory because I know what it is, but I use a bread called thin sliced 21 grains bread by Dave's. It's this thin sliced bread, and I believe it has 60 calories in it, I think, and the total carbohydrates are 12 grams. The dietary fiber is 3. It doesn't have any sugar alcohol in it, but the protein is 3, and the total fat is very low. So if we were going to do our label reading for this, we would say 12 minus 3, right? Because 12 minus the fiber, which is 3, 12 minus 3 is 9, minus any sugar alcohols. There are no sugar alcohols in this, so 9 minus 0 is still 9, and then the protein is 3, so 9 minus 3 is 6. Is this less than or equal to 10? Yes, it is. Therefore, this is probably going to be a food that we're not going to be able to eat so much of. It will fill us up before we're usually able to overeat it. The calories are 60. The total fat is definitely less than 15, and preferably less than 5 would be great. So this is a great food to eat. So if you're going to eat bread, then this thin sliced Dave's 21 whole grain bread is probably the bread to get. And now you can do this for cereals, for protein bars, for your protein shakes, and all of these kinds of things. These are the things that you want to take care of. Now, obviously, this is looking at the macronutrients. And when we look at labels, we want to look at calories, right? We want low-calorie foods. We want low-calorie, like I can eat a pint of ice cream, and it's only 240 calories. So less than a 300 snack for something that feels like an 1,000-calorie meal. That's a good deal for cutting off cravings in my brain. It also has 20 grams of protein if I eat that whole pint. That's a pretty good deal for cutting down hunger. If I eat 2 slices of this Dave's thin sliced 21 whole grain bread, that's going to give me 6 grams of protein and 6 grams of fiber with not a whole lot of carbohydrate and fat to go along with it. So remember, there are 2 things required to lose fat: create a calorie deficit and hormonal balance. The hormonal balance has to come first, and all that means is hormones balanced so that hunger and cravings are not an issue. Hormones are responsible for those sensations. So when HEC, hunger, energy, and cravings are in check, you know you ate enough protein and fiber and water to reduce the hormonal impact on hunger and cravings. That comes first. That means you can get through the day without binging, without being starving and all that kind of stuff, and you'll probably be more likely rather than less likely to achieve a calorie deficit. Now, at the same time, you can look at the label for the micronutrition. You'll see things like calcium and thiamine and niacin and vitamin B6 and vitamin K. Obviously, with a whole food like an apple, we don't have this. We know it's rich in different things, vitamin C and boron and all the different B vitamins, which are water soluble, and fiber and water, and obviously not a lot of protein and not a lot of fat. But we know it's rich in micronutrition. We know that about most fruits and vegetables. We also know most fruits and vegetables are rich in phytonutrition, plant chemicals, bioactive compounds that we now know have effects in the body. For example, we know that coffee, for example, does not have calories, black coffee, but it does have bioactive compounds in it that can be beneficial to our body. Many of these compounds are like chlorogenic acid, can have insulin lowering effects and have beneficial effects in our body and impact our GI system in certain ways that are beneficial. And so certainly we can look and make sure that these packaged foods have a good array of vitamins and minerals in them and not mistake those things for chemicals like many people will do. Oh my God, it's got maltodextrin in it. Oh, you mean it has starch in it? Oh my God, it's got thiamine in it and xylitol in it. Oh, you mean it has vitamin B3 and a sugar alcohol in it? So we need to be smart about this, but we want these macronutrients to be protein and fiber based. We want carbohydrate and fat lower, and we will do ourselves a huge favor just by paying close attention to these label reading tools. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go into your cupboards and get your favorite stuff out and look at it. And what you'll find oftentimes is the cookies and the crackers and all the chips and all that kind of stuff are loaded in fat and starch and have very little fiber and protein in it when you do this calculation. And then you'll look at some of the things and you'll see why some protein bars, yogurts, those types of things, healthy breads, certain meals, certain take-home meals at Whole Foods and protein shakes and meal replacements have a beneficial effect. So I'm going to stop right there for today. Quick hitting, powerful, I hope, for you to understand how to read labels and do it in a smart way and not believe all the hype about all the chemicals in your food, and realize that we are at a really interesting time in science right now where we are getting lots and lots of the foods we love delivered to us in a way that mimics some of the natural benefits of eating a very high protein, water-based, and fiber diet, fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins. Now we're having breads that can do that, and protein bars that can do that, and protein cookies that can do that. As a matter of fact, I eat a protein cookie every single day called the BioTrust cookie. I like the oatmeal raisin one that has 12 grams of protein in it. I believe it's 3 or 7 grams of fiber and very little total carbohydrates and only 150 calories. Wouldn't it be great to eat 150 calories and have it feel like 300 calories? Isn't it great to eat something like Halo Top when you really have a craving like I did tonight and be able to eat only 240 calories and it feels like you ate 1,000? That's the kind of smart nutrition you want, realistic, convenient-based, not based on hype and making perfect the enemy of good and confusing all this stuff about, all these chemicals in your food and things like that, when many of this stuff is actually highly beneficial. So thanks so much for being on the podcast. I love that you guys are here listening to this. Please do me a favor. Rate this show. Give me a review. Pass this on to all your friends and family who you want to get good quality health and fitness, metabolism, muscle, mindset types of information to help them excel in body change and in health and in fitness. Okay, guys, have a great one. See you on the next show. Okay, so right about now, you're probably wondering, hey, Jade, where do I get great tasting convenience food that helps me keep my hunger, my energy, my cravings, my heck in check? Well, I have one that I absolutely love. I use it every morning. Well, actually not every morning, probably about 98% of the time. I have a protein cookie with my coffee first thing in the morning. You know, I like to do a lot of intermittent fasting, and I do a modified version where I have 150 calories first thing in the morning, then I don't usually eat again until about 4 o'clock at night. This is what works for me. I probably wouldn't recommend this for everyone, but it works great for me, and this protein cookie really helps me stick to this particular regime. And if I get really hungry during the day, maybe I'll have another one. You can access this cookie at drj.com/biotrust-cookies. drj.com/biotrust-cookies. The one I love is the oatmeal raisin. They also have a chocolate chip. That one I'm not nearly as fond of, but I have that oatmeal raisin cookie every single morning. I think you will love it. Check it out, drj.com/biotrust-cookies.